If you want the ultimate leveling kit for your 2019 and newer four-wheel drive Sierra 1500, look no further than the B8 6112 leveling kit from Bilstein. Combining some of their best damping technology and hefty shocks with the ability to adjust your truck's front ride height, this is one of the coolest and most complete leveling kits on the market. Just a quick note on fitment here before we dive in. This kit is designed to fit 2019 and newer four-wheel drive Sierra 1500s, excluding AT4 models. Now, the main point of putting on a leveling kit is to get some additional height in the front end, and most kits do exactly that. But this one is different. Coming from the suspension experts at Bilstein though, that is to be expected. This setup includes new springs, new shocks, and the ability to adjust your truck's front ride height with these adjustable collars. Just move the snap ring here on the body of the shock up to the top for the extra 3.5 inches of height, and use the bottom rung to keep your stock ride height, or adjust it to one of the other ones in between and get it dialed in just how you like it. It's pretty cool stuff. Now, adjusting that height, of course, once you have these installed, is going to require you to disassemble everything and reassemble them with the snap rings in a new place. But having the ability to adjust this to your taste at all puts this far ahead of a lot of other fixed leveling kits. Now, it is worth noting that exactly how much lift you get is dependent on the suspension your truck has. And since this kit fits a bunch of different models with varying types of suspension, the exact amount of lift you get might vary a bit. That said, with the snap rings in their highest setting, you can fit up to 33-inch tires without rubbing or the need for other modifications. Now, keep in mind too that if you are going to run these at a lower height setting, you will need to adjust your tire size down accordingly and keep it closer to your stock size. But there's more than height to talk about here. Bilstein are the experts in damping. Now, I've run their shocks on several of my own vehicles, always with great results. The B8s are some of their best, and they combine great damping out on the road with consistent fade-free performance on the trails. These are a monotube shock and are specifically tuned for each vehicle application, so they're going to suit the needs of the Sierra about as perfectly as you could possibly get. Inside, they feature something called digressive valving technology, which allows the shocks to instantly react to impacts and varying road surfaces. Also inside, you're going to find self-adjusting deflective disc valves, which allows for more variability in rebound, compression, and travel. The huge 60mm shock bodies here also allow for increased oil capacity, which aids cooling and thus long-term durability. Now, all that adds up to excellent control and consistent, reliable damping no matter the conditions. And despite these being non-adjustable monotube shocks without remote reservoirs, the damping here is absolutely excellent, and you can definitely feel the difference in body control versus stock. These also aren't going to ruin the ride quality by any means, and in fact, it stays pretty much the same. It's just a little bit more firm, and again, that means more control. It's a shock that really doesn't compromise in any way. Now, of course, they also come with the springs to match. These are beefed up compared to your stock springs, so they're going to match the characteristics of the shocks perfectly. Now, these are linear springs, they're not progressive, so it's the same spring rate all the way through, much like your stock ones, so they will provide consistent performance and control, and again, they are tuned to work perfectly with the shocks. That is because, just like the shocks, they are also specifically designed for each vehicle application. Construction, as you expect from Bilstein, is excellent. You get that huge 60mm diameter shock body that is zinc plated for durability and good looks. Inside of those 60mm digressive pistons that we were talking about, along with chromed and hardened piston rods. The springs are cold wound and powder coated for enhanced durability, and they sit on billet anodized spring perches as well. So you also get new OEM grade bushings down at the bottom mounting points, and new hardware too, giving you everything you need short of new top hats. And it is worth noting that this kit is compatible with your factory top hats. Bilstein also backs these up with a lifetime warranty against defects, and I can tell you from experience they are good about honoring that. Just make sure you save your receipt. Pricing comes in at about $900 for the kit, and while that is expensive for a leveling kit, this is positioned as a premium option, and thus you're going to pay a premium to get it. But again, Bilstein's products are always a standout in their category, and if you've got the room in your budget, it's worth picking this up. Now, we do also carry the matching set of rear shocks, so if you want a fully matched set for your truck, take a look at those on our site as well. Installation is going to get a 3 out of 3, and the job should take you around 4 hours to complete. Now, the reason it gets that rating and that time frame is that you're going to need a spring compressor for this job no matter how you decide to tackle it. Whether you reuse your factory top hats or get new ones, this job is a little bit involved. With that said though, we're going to walk you through the process step by step, so for that, let's head on out to the shop.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, snap ring pliers, clip remover tool, 6 and 15 millimeter wrenches, a pass-through ratchet with 15 and 18 millimeter pass-through sockets, vice grips, an extension, 10, 15, and 18 millimeter sockets, 15 and 18 millimeter swivel sockets, a hammer, 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench, a pry bar, as well as a spring compressor and pole jacks or floor jacks. What's up guys? Today we're installing a leveling kit on our Sierra, so let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is take a 10 millimeter socket on our ratchet to remove our brake line brackets. So we've got 4 total brackets we need to disconnect. We've got our 1 on the upper control arm, 1 on the side of the knuckle, 1 on the back, and then 1 on the opposite side of the knuckle. So grab your 10 millimeter socket and pull all those bolts out. I'm just throwing all the bolts back in their holes. So now we're gonna hop underneath, and we've got our nut for our sway bar end link we need to remove, as well as the 2 bolts for our lower strut mount. So take a 15 millimeter socket for your 2 bolts first. And then switch to an 18 millimeter socket to remove the nut on your sway bar end link. Next we'll come up to our upper control arm ball joint and take an 18 millimeter swivel socket to remove that nut. We're just gonna loosen it up at first, don't fully remove it until we have our knuckles separated from our ball joint. And now once you have that nut loosened up, take a hammer and just strike the side of the knuckle here to get that knuckle to separate from the ball joint. We're gonna grab a pry bar to pull down on this upper control arm to get our nut off. So now I'm gonna get my pry bar up in here to pry down on my upper control arm and remove my nut. Now I've got a pole jack underneath the lower control arm to hold the weight of the suspension. I'm just gonna turn that off to the side, and then we can go up top and get our upper strut nuts. So now up top, we've got our 3 upper strut nuts. We're gonna take an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench to pop those off. I've got a clip remover tool first to pop this plastic up off of our studs. We can just push that out of the way for now. So now I'll take that 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench and remove these nuts. I'm just gonna leave that one on a few threads while we get the back one here. So now it's pretty tight back there. You don't really have a lot of room for a ratcheting wrench. So I was able to get a ratchet onto that nut, and then I'm gonna loosen it with that. And then you can reach in there, fully remove that nut. And then we'll get our one that we left hand tight out of there as well. So now I'm just gonna lower down my pole jack until we have enough room to get our factory strut out of here. Lift up on my upper control arm and pivot that out. And then you can repeat that same process on the other side. So now that we have our factory struts removed, we're gonna have to go over to the spring compressor to get our top hats off. Before we do that, I'm gonna get our new strut all set up so that we can just swap it right over once we're over there. We have this snap ring with a bunch of different grooves that you can put it into. Lower down is gonna be a lower ride height, and higher up is gonna be a higher ride height. Now, how much it raises your truck is gonna depend on which configuration of truck you have, which they have detailed on the website. For our truck, we're gonna move it up to the highest slot here, and that's gonna be about a 2.5 inch lift for us. So to remove this ring up to our highest perch here, you're gonna take a pair of snap ring pliers. As you pinch these, it's gonna spread. So it's gonna spread that ring out so that you can move it. So just get it in the gap there, stretch it out, and then just walk it up to your highest ring land here. And just snap that into place. Make sure it's seated in that ridge all the way around. And then you can take your spring seat. We're gonna slide that over and then onto that snap ring. Now do the same thing with the other one, and we'll head over to the spring compressor to take apart our factory struts. So now we're over at the spring compressor. I've got my factory strut all set up here. I've got a pair of vice grips on the spring to prevent this from corkscrewing out of place. Now we just want to make sure that we line up our top hat with our bottom mount the same way it is on the factory when we do our new Bilstein shock. If you need to, you can put a nice Sharpie mark right down the middle there, but the spring perch does line up perfectly to there to tell us where it needs to go. So once you have this safely set up in your spring compressor, you can start cranking down to apply pressure. We want our strut to be able to move side to side so that we know our pressure is off of that, and then we'll remove our upper nut. So now I'm just gonna start applying pressure to our spring. You wanna do this slowly, make sure these aren't popping out. Every so often, give this a wiggle. It's starting to come loose, so we'll just go a little more. Now we're nice and loose down there. So I'm gonna remove this upper nut using an 18mm pass-through socket. This has a hole in it so that the stud can poke out through the top, so that we can take a 6mm wrench to grab that stud. So I'm gonna throw that on, get my 6mm wrench on the stud here, break that nut free. And once you get close to the end, grab your strut, twist your nut off, slide your strut out, and then we'll start relieving pressure from our spring so that we can remove our top hat. So just come off of that slowly. Once you're fully decompressed, you can slide those top pieces out, and then you can use a plastic pry tool to get in between your top hat and the spring and loosen that up. Work your way around, and you're gonna remove your whole top hat and dust shield assembly. Now before we get to installing our new shock and spring onto our top hat, it's important to note that Bilstein recommends that you cut 1.75 inches off your dust boot starting at the bottom. So just measure up, and then you can take a razor blade or any kind of cutting tool you like to make that cut. Now for demonstration purposes, I'm not gonna be cutting the dust boot. It will fit on the strut just like this, so I'm not gonna do it, but that is what Bilstein tells you to do when installing this at home. So now I've got our new spring in there all lined up. We're gonna take our top hat assembly and drop it on. Now you wanna make sure that your bump stop is still inside the boot. Sometimes it comes off on the strut. If that's the case, just pop that back in. And then we're just gonna line up the end of the spring with that spot in the top hat. And then just bring your arms in, lower them down into place. Make sure you're nice and lined up. And then you can start applying pressure to your spring. Give it a couple turns and then just make sure everything's still in place. And then you can start cranking down on your spring. And then you can take your strut from the bottom, feed it up and through that hole, get your bottom spring perch seated up against your spring, and thread your new nut on. And now we're going to be tightening this down with a 15mm pass-through socket and still that same 6mm wrench. As we bring it up, you want to make sure that your strut is pointing the same direction as where the spring seat is. So start out with your 15mm pass-through socket until that stud starts to spin, which it's doing now. And then just stick your 6mm wrench in there to hold that stud. And now before you release tension, make sure you're nice and lined up here. You want this bottom mount of the strut directly in the center of your two studs. You have a little tab on the top hat that also lines up with this part of your upper spring isolator. Make sure that's nice and lined up, and then start taking pressure on it, off of it. As you're releasing pressure, just keep checking, make sure it's not rotating. Just slowly release that pressure. One more time. Check that, we're nice and lined up. I'm gonna fully release pressure here. Pop my vice grips off. and remove my strut, and then do the same thing for your other one. So now back at the truck, I'm gonna get my new strut installed. I've got a buddy here to pull down on the lower control arm. We're going down on the lower and up on the upper to get this into place. Slide your lower in first, and then just get that into place, and then we'll raise this up with our pole jack to get it into our upper mount. So now I'm gonna grab one hand on my strut to line up my studs with the mounting holes, and I'm gonna use my other hand to raise up on my pole jack. If you're doing this on the ground, it's just gonna be the same with your floor jack. And then you can just throw a couple of your nuts on, hand tight, just to hold it into place for now. Next, we're gonna install our lower strut bolts. So the bolts are gonna go from the bottom to the top. You can loosen up your pole jack or your floor jack to make it easier to get these installed. And then we're gonna be using the new nuts included in our kit for the top of these bolts. Just get these threaded into place for now, and then we'll go back and tighten them down. So now we can install our lower strut bolts. So we're reusing the factory bolts coming up through the bottom. Now you can release a little bit of tension on your pole jack or floor jack to help it be easier to line up. And then we're using these new nuts included in our kit for the top of those bolts. Thread those in, and then we'll take a 15mm socket and wrench to tighten those down. So now get your 15mm wrench on your nut side and your 15mm socket on your bolt side and tighten these down. So now we can go back up top and reconnect our upper control arm ball joint to the knuckle. So just take a pry bar, get it on your spring there. Get your nut on a couple threads, and then you can get better leverage. Thread that on, and then we'll grab our 18mm swivel socket and tighten down that nut. And now we'll go back up top to our upper strut mount. Thread those nuts that you threaded on before the rest of the way on by hand. Install any nuts that you didn't put on before. And then you can grab your 18mm ratcheting wrench for the front two. I'm gonna go in with that electric ratchet with the 18mm socket in the back again. Slide that in. And then grab your 18mm ratcheting wrench for the other two. And now once you have everything tightened down, you can pull your plastic back in place and pop it in place over that stud. And now you can go back and reinstall all of your brake line and ABS brackets. I'm just gonna get all of these threaded into place first, and then I'll take my 10mm socket to go back and tighten them all down. And then just make sure all of your little locating tabs are in their holes, and then tighten down your bracket. Now once you have your struts installed on both sides, we can come back and do our sway bar end links. Now you want to do these together, because if your stud is not in the hole on one side, you're not going to be able to get it in. So get your studs for the end links in the holes on both sides, and then you can thread your nut back on and take your 18mm socket and tighten them down. And then repeat on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Bilstein 0 to 3.5 inch lift B8 6112 front suspension leveling kit for your 2019 and newer four-wheel drive Sierra 1500, excluding AT4. Thank you for watching, and for all things Sierra, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.